You are listening to Fantha Tracks.
It's time to head south with the Fantha From Down Under. Here's your host, Adam O'Brien.
Welcome to Fantha Tracks, the Fantha From Down Under, live from Quinlan's Cantina in the Gold Coast of Australia, episode number 68. What's up? Or is what's really what's down? Because we're down under, apparently. Well, us Australians don't see it that way. We see that we're the other way around, and you guys are down under, but hey. Welcome to the show. I'm Adam O'Brien, of course, here, Australian correspondent of Fantha Track. Star Wars news in a single file. And I tell you what, folks, it's been a little while since I've podcasted, now that my schedule's clear and the world that is mine and martial arts and stuff like that is not in the way. We're getting back into Star Wars podcasting in a big way. And tonight, on this episode, going to be looking at some new news coming out about new films, talk about a little bit to the state of Star Wars, but more than anything, we're going to chat about all these TV shows that just keep popping up, folks. And they just keep popping up and up and up and up. Some of them look interesting, some don't. Some look, like I probably need to watch them a bit more and really get a sense of them. But it's a law of diminishing returns on some of them, and some of them just seem to nail it on the head, such as Kenobi, such as Andor. And, well, it's a very short list, folks, but that's what we're on about tonight here on the show. So, this show's been going for a fair while. Obviously, there's some great ones you're going to see on the Fantha Tracks network. So whatever you do, definitely check out Making Tracks. It is the main show on the network, of course, with the two marks. You'll be able to catch that over at, of course, fanthatracks.com with all the others. Matt, Brian, Mark, and the entire team do a fantastic job. I just can't keep up with the amount of names we've got. We've got a lot. Everyone has the same passion for this amazing franchise, as I do, as you do, out there. Of course, now that Disney is running the ship, Lucasfilm, we're going to get more and more of that. Now, let's talk about the big news that's happening. There is a new movie. It is a Rey Skywalker movie. There's been some interesting movement on that. This is a movie that's going to be set about 15 years after Rise of Skywalker. The film itself deals with the new Jedi Order that Rey Skywalker puts together. Now, there's no other details about, other heroes coming back, whether it's Finn and Poe. Those two have sailed on to, those two actors, I should say, have sailed on to other franchises, namely, of course, Oscar Isaac's moved on to Dune and many others, and, of course, Marvel with Moon Knight. But, of course, it's his turn in Dune, which was just fantastic. And no doubt we'll have some ghostly imagery in part 2 of Duke Leto, as we do in the books, and of course, that too. But this is more around Rey and Rey's future, what she's doing with, of course, those library books she took off old mate Skywalker and has made her own, and of course has now become the lead Jedi. When you've got a Jedi, there's always going to be those that want to corrupt what is the good of the Force, the light of the Force. And so there's going to be, no doubt, a story about corruption, dark side, light side. It always happens. That's what it is about Jedi. And it's one of the reasons that we like Andor, because there is no freaking Jedi. So let's get that cat out of the bag. It's the best damn Star Wars there is Andor. Diego Luna's on a whole other spectrum. Stellan Skarsgård, this kick and tail. It's some of the best acting, best action in the saga, folks. But this report comes from comicbook.com. Talking about some of the updates. It talks about Production Weekly describes this film as set roughly 15 years after Rey's victory over Palpatine at the end of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. The sequel delves into Rey's courageous endeavour to restore the Jedi Order, where she assumes the role of mentor to promising young students, a girl and a boy. As their training progresses, it becomes evident the girl possesses extraordinary abilities destined to emerge as future leader. So it doesn't mean that this character is going to be a Jedi or anything like that. It just says new leader. So we're setting up, obviously, another series of films, or at least a character. Now, I did see another report from another site which said that Idris Elba has a role in this film. That is the one that's got me. I'm like, yeah, Idris, why wouldn't you? Idris is one of the most talented actors out there today. And also one of the best DJs. He's a fantastic DJ, folks. But having said that, what is great about the idea of this is that we have a character that Disney, had a hand in creating, partly the design of George Lucas a little while back, as this was originally a character called Kira, who would then, of course, go on to be a mysterious Force user and was destined to be somehow linked to somebody from the original trilogy. I'm sure that wasn't Palpatine back then. But it doesn't really matter at this point. What matters is She's about the only, one that can teach Jedi or teach the Force, whatever you want to call it at this stage. So that's where we're at pretty much, folks. There's not a whole lot of other stuff there. Obviously, we know the 15-year time period. I think originally this was meant to be a lot later. This was meant to be like 100 years later or something like that.
Hi, this is Guy Henry, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks. Enjoy.
My personal opinion, again, they're going back on their word big time here. They're going back on their word where they said, we're not going to do anything Skywalker. We are going to set ourselves apart. Lucasfilm doesn't know what it wants to do. It either wants to shelve a project or disassociate itself from the words that they've just said. We're going to announce something. It's announced. There we are. It's out there. Now we don't really want to do it. We're going to do this instead. Whoever's running this ship is one of the most indecisive when it comes to, whether it's production or whatever it is. I don't know whether it's coming from Kathleen Kennedy or coming from Disney themselves, whoever. You guys have to deliver something. TV shows is one thing, and you're doing that quite well. But Star Wars is a cinema franchise, right? George made this to be seen on the big screen. Didn't sit to put it on the TV like Battlestar Galactica, which is about a tenth of what Star Wars should be, even though really Last Jedi is Battlestar Galactica. What we're really looking at here is, a chance for them to kind of redeem themselves in the public eye as far as being able to deliver a product. Deliver something that knocks us out of our seats. It's not a jumbled mess that Rise of Skywalker was. The first two films, although flawed, were well contained. Last Jedi, not particularly my favourite, but it is a solid story from start to finish. Now, you've got to look at that too with the Force Awakens, which was A New Hope all over again, and The Phantom Menace all over again. It was an entry into trilogy. And then, of course, Rogue One came along and just crapped all over it because it is a far better told story and is not afraid to pull punches and kills off its heroes. Because that's part of what stories like this are. If you want to make your characters interesting, you need to make them mortal. They're not the Kurgan. They're not Connor MacLeod or the Clan MacLeod. No, that's not what happens. What happens is people stand up against tyranny, oppression, all the things that George set out in the original trilogy to do. And they do continue to do that in the movies, but part of that is sacrifice. And of course, we've seen some of our heroes do that, but I do believe some of the new ones need to do that too. You need to stand up and put yourself in harm's way to save others. And that's part of what it means to be the Force as well. It's part of what a Jedi does. Selflessness. Heroism is selflessness. It's caring about others. Doing it right, but you care about others. That's heroism, folks. And that's what makes the characters, it's gut-wrenching, and it makes it hard a story. And I think we've lost that sense of danger, that sense of adventure even, in those current stories.
For everything in one location, daily news, reviews, interviews, podcasts, video, and social media feeds, bookmark FanthaTracks.com for Star Wars news 24/7, 365.
James Mangold's story sounds great. The Dawn of the Jedi. Now, how many times had we seen Dark Horse do something similar? Dark Horse Comics brought out a series, and the series was called Dawn of the Jedi. It came out in about 2011, 2012. Now, this was the height of when they said, you know what, we're going to put out something interesting. We're going to put something about the foundation of the Jedi Order. And boy, did they deliver. I'm getting a real kick out. I love Dawn of the Jedi. It was fantastic. Set on Tython, which we've been to in The Mandalorian, and it was an interesting kicker, good setup. We had the older races which have got all this technology, and then this is at a time where there was no space travel, all that sort of stuff, set up. But what's interesting is, and this is the real thing for me, is that we got to see the Jedi, Prime Jedi, I guess, we're seeing that little statue or that little marble thing on the ground in the Last Jedi Temple. It is an interesting, to look back at a time where you had the Ashlar and the Bogan, and they were together, and then there wasn't really a Dark Jedi element at that stage. They were still trying to figure this thing out. So Mangold's got that. Mangold's Jedi thing is a bloody good idea. It's going to be looking at what is the Force. They don't know at this stage. It could be more like a superhero film than anything, less a mystical one, which I think, it'll appear to be down the line. So it's an interesting time. Mangold is one of the few directors which, he really delivers. Look at Wolverine, great film. That second of the spin-off films. Logan, even better. The ending of both of those were pretty horrible, but that's more a writing thing. Mangold delivered some fantastic photography in those films too. But also down to 310 to Humour that he worked on. I believe he worked on Tom Cruise film, was it Night and Day? But also Mangold doing, of course, Dial of Destiny, this Indiana Jones one, which is not getting the greatest of reviews from critics. And it's apparently a bit of a mixed bag. Future of the Force have been letting us know that, it's kind of a mixed bag. I still want to see it. It's Harrison. Harrison does Harrison. Doesn't really matter. And you get Mads Mikkelsen, who is one of the greats, and plus he's in Star Wars, so we've got to give him a bit of a hand there too. But what's great about this one is that you think about Dawn of the Jedi. They have a chance to kind of refresh things. And I'm not talking about a reboot or anything like that, but refresh what it is to be Jedi in the minds of the public. We know Star Wars so damn well that we know it for what it is. We know Star Wars for the case in this case, that it is a franchise which has these good and bad elements. We know they've got Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, blah, blah, blah. You go back to the Dawn of the Jedi, you can really screw with things. And I mean in a story way that things are fresh and maybe even for a new generation. What really does it mean to be a Jedi? Do we get to the root of things that are more samurai-like? What is honor? What is sacrifice? All those things can be pulled into this. At a time where there's probably no technology. We're talking 10,000 years before all this stuff started. And we've seen things like this before. The Dark Horse comics, Ulick Qel-Droma's Tales of the Jedi as well. Yes, the one that's not just the animated series, folks. We're talking about the real stuff here. That's part and parcel of what these great ones are. And I think it's a detriment to where things really head with Saga. You can really strip it right back to its core element. What is the Force? How does it relate to the real world? Is it spirit, guidance, moral? What is it that we pull from? And why do we like it so much? Why do we like the Jedi? Why has it got that sort of structure that's almost like martial arts? It's very Aikido, the way that the Force is pulled together. All those elements coming together make it interesting, and whether that is going to come through or not. So I'm very interested to see where Mangold goes with this, because out of all those, that's the one that really has a chance to give us something new. Another Rey movie? Come on, you've had 3. She's going to be a bit older, wiser and all that. But we've had redemption stories. We've had people fall into the dark side stories. We need something fresh. We need something new. And Lucasfilm's at a point where it really needs a few winners for not only the business side of it, but people to trust, where things are heading.
I'm Gareth Edwards, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks Radio.
Hayden Christensen coming back for a few shows. Now, one of those being, of course, Rosario Dawson, talking on, of course, DarkHorizons.com, this news comes from, where she's talking about, of course, in her series Ahsoka, which is about to be released soon, Hayden Christensen might be making an appearance. Obviously, it's his Padawan learner. It's part of, what Anakin Skywalker needed to move up the levels of being a Jedi, in this case. Talking with Total Film, Rosario Dawson was straight up about it. She said, pretty remarkable and exciting. We were teenagers, then I saw him right away immediately after I was going to this universe. They worked together years ago, so they actually know each other. So the fact that they're going to actually be able to come together in this series, which also stars Natasha Liu Bordizzo, Ray Stevenson, the late great Punisher himself, David Tennant, and of course, Mrs. Ewan McGregor herself, Mary Elizabeth Winstead. And it comes out on August 23rd. Now, if you're a fan of Rebels, I think you're going to get a real kick out of this. And, when you look back on it, Rosario Dawson herself is a huge pop culture nut. She's got her own comic books. She's very much into, a lot of these universes that we all get into too. She's in Clerks. She's a good friend of Kevin Smith's. There's all those things that come about being a great element for Star Wars itself. Hayden Christensen coming back after what he was put through, I think is, it's hard. He went through some really rough times with Phantom, and critics of his acting. But if you look back on it now, Hayden's work as Anakin, also leading into Darth Vader. And of course, his work as Darth Vader is just phenomenal. Kenobi itself is definitely something that could continue a different storyline. They could bring in Darth Maul. How they tie that into the animated series, who knows? But out here in Australia, it was a huge hit. Everyone loved that on Disney+. When you look at it, the only downside is bringing in too many other characters, sort of made things a little bit jumbled here and there, but they were strong characters, so why not? But, Ewan obviously is in his element, and so does Hayden, and great to see those two back together. So, folks, let us know in the comments below, wherever you're seeing this, or on fanthatracks.com, what your thoughts are on these new films and everything that's coming along. And, mate, I want to know more. For everything else, you can catch, of course, me at The Lethal Mullet on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can also catch us, obviously, on fanthatracks.com and, of course, on Fanthatracks on all their socials as well. Well, that's all we have time for here tonight on the Fantha From Down Under. And we'll catch you next time. Same place, same channel, and, of course, with more Star Wars news in a single file from Fanthatracks.com's Australian edition. That's right, we'll catch you next time. So, until then, may the Force be with you, and enjoy your Star Wars fandom. We'll see you next time. Warning, no Tauntauns were harmed in the filming and recording of this podcast. We'll catch you next time, and, of course, may the Force be with you.
Coming up next on Fantha Tracks Radio, it's Making Tracks.